Welcome to the Gray Area, the podcast where we talk about claims, judgment, and the spaces where the answer isn't always very clear. In our world, very little is black and white. Policies have wordings, claims have facts, and real life has a habit of sitting in between. And that's the gray area where even specialists waffle sometimes. The podcast is about exploring those moments, the technical discussions, best practice in claims handling, real case studies, and the judgment calls that actually define the specialist liability space. I'm Nadia, and this is Kamini. We are seasoned professionals with 30 years of combined experience in the insurance industry. We are here to have honest conversations about the role of the claims specialist and how the claims specialist continues to evolve. For our first episode, we're going to start from the beginning, because we all know that when we actually start with our careers, we all don't know every answer. We grow into it. We grow into the role, and we grow into that judgment. So in this podcast, we will share our experience and various milestones, memories, and moments that impacted our journey as claims specialists. I think it's always best to start from the beginning and break it down to basics. Kamini, what is the role of a claims specialist?
That's a difficult question to answer, Nadia.
I'm putting you on the spot.
You're putting me on the spot. But I think that it's a very important question because a lot of the time, the role of a claims specialist is misunderstood. So it's actually a great place to start. A claims specialist is a person that has to make decisions on very complex matters in a very effective way. And as you said, it's very difficult to do this because you have facts that are not always clear. You have policy wordings that do not always speak to the specific circumstances that you are dealing with. And you have these huge commercial decisions that need to be made, and there's pressure from very many stakeholders. So the claims specialist's job, in essence, is to steward that process. The claims specialist is a navigator, a sailor, a voyager.
That's a great analogy.
The claims specialist is there to make sure that the ship is steering in the right way. And the most important quality, I would say, of a claims specialist is that you cannot be reactive. You cannot start doing damage control when the iceberg has already hit the ship. Otherwise, you're going to have a Titanic type situation on your hands. You need to be very, very strategic. And because there's so many balls that you're juggling in the air, that strategy is the most important quality of a claims specialist. So if I had to answer that question, a claims specialist is a strategist, is a navigator, he's the person that's going to guide this matter to a solution. They're a problem solver, and you need to solve various problems at the same time, because a claim is just not one issue that you need to sort out. You need to probably sort out what the policy response is, if there's a liability issue, what the liability issue is, or which legal counsel are you going to use, which loss adjuster you're going to use, who is more appropriate for each and every circumstance. And unfortunately, those things only come with a lot of experience. It's only after you've handled many, many cases would you be able to effectively handle a complex claim.
And it's always good to have a strategy because you need to know where you're heading to and kind of have an indication of what the outcome could be.
So Nadia, you asked me what a claim specialist is, but I think there's nobody better suited to answer that question than you are. Can you tell us, was there a claim or decision that fundamentally changed how you approach your work?
There definitely was an experience linked to a claim.
Okay.
So I remember there was this day, and somehow an insured actually managed to get directly through to me. And as you know, in terms of our procedures and protocols, you're not allowed to speak directly to the insured. And it was one of those situations where all you could do is just listen.
Okay, because usually you work through a broker.
Yeah.
So it's not a direct insurance. In your case, you had to work through a broker, so the insured had to speak to the broker, not you directly.
100%. But before I could even jump in that way, you could already pick up the tone. Now, to provide context, it was a legal matter where he was cited as a defendant, and there were very serious allegations that were made against this person. There was also the quantum that was quite excessive. But what also happened further was this plaintiff decided to take matters further and institute various other proceedings. So this person, when they phoned, was so highly irate, so stressed out, basically telling me that their entire family life has been impacted by the situation and the stress it's caused him. And I remember driving home that day, and I was thinking to myself, it just kept on playing, that conversation, that we always need to put ourselves in the shoes of someone else. That when we're dealing with a matter, there's someone impacted and they're going through something. Because far too often we take this opinion that if a person has a reaction, they're either just emotional or they're just difficult. But there's always that context to a situation. And another thing, it made me check myself to also review my actions. Was there something that I could have done better? Did I not actually reach out via the relevant parties to convey something clearly? Did I not actually give guidelines in terms of the process? Or was I delayed in doing something? So that's something that actually stayed with me. My actions can indirectly impact someone.
That's very interesting, because I think a lot of people would answer that question to say they dealt with a very technical claim, or they dealt with something that was so legally complex. But it's very interesting to hear you say that it was actually a human issue that affected your career the most. And that is really something I think that a lot of people underestimate, the power of the human connection in claims handling, because it's so charged. It's so emotionally charged.
It's scary.
And as much as it's business, and as much as it's a lot of money, at the end of the day, it's either your reputation on the line, it's either your house, your car, your everything can be on the line.
Yeah.
It could be really destroyed by one claim.
And that's so important to keep in mind. Now, I'm not conveying the message that you should just pay everything or bend over. There's obviously terms and conditions. You need to do your homework in terms of getting the information and paying out a valid claim. But always remember there's someone, either a person or an organization. So what we do contributes to a situation.
And I mean, essentially, that's why they take insurance, right? To make sure that there's some peace of mind in the event that something happens. So are you going to be that person's peace, or are you going to be that person's nightmare?
100%. And I mean, that's something that actually can play on your conscience as well. At the end of the day, human connection is a strong part of who we are, whether it's in our workspace, home space, in some or the other way we connect with people. What piece of advice was something that has actually stayed with you throughout your career?
Okay. All right, let me spill the tea here. Don't judge me, Nadia.
I never judge.
No judgment on this couch.
No judgment.
So this happened very, very, very early on in my career. I had just inherited about 1,000 files, I would say, and each file was probably 300 to 400 pages long. They were PI claims, and I was in over my head in a big way. But it was a baptism by fire, and I think that was the point where I really learned a lot. So there was this one particular matter where I had to pay indemnity to a third party, and I had not communicated properly with the loss adjuster. I didn't really have a relationship with the loss adjuster because I just started, and the loss adjuster, between the loss adjuster and I, we didn't realize that the insured had paid their deductible directly to the third party. And here I go, like a local hero, and pay over 300,000 extra of what I was supposed to pay. So now here's this extra 300,000 that is paid into some third party's account, and what are the chances of getting it back? So at the time, I had this manager that everybody told me she was kind of a dragon lady, but she really wasn't. I think that's just a narrative that people like to spin sometimes about women. And I went over to her and I said, listen, oh my gosh, I made this huge mistake. And I was terrified, nuts, because people were like, you better pack your bags and go, you are fired with immediate effect.
Everyone was stirring the pot.
Everybody stirred the pot, and not making me feel better, but trying to make me feel better. And I went over to her and I said, listen, this is what has happened. I have paid 300,000 too much, and it's a huge amount of money, and I don't know what I'm going to do. So she said to me, and this has stayed with me for my entire career. She said to me, it's very important in life that you realize that there is nothing, no situation that you cannot fix. If you put your mind to it, and if you buckle down, you're going to fix the situation because you have the skills, you have the confidence to be able to do it. So she said, I'm not going to tell you how to fix the situation. You go back and you figure it out for yourself and come back and tell me when it's sorted out. So I went back and I called up the third party and I had a very candid conversation and I said, please give me my money back. And eventually they did.
But that was great advice.
It was amazing advice. It helped me when I became a manager. It gave me the confidence to tell my team members, listen, if something happens, we will figure it out. We will fix it. you're juggling so many balls at the same time. A mistake is bound to happen. You're only human at the end of the day. You're not perfect. And the most important thing is you never cover up your mistake. You own it and you take responsibility for it. Because the more you cover up, the more it's one thing on top of the other, and it becomes a huge, yes, it becomes a huge fire. So take responsibility for it, and there's nothing that we can't conquer together.
Nothing at all, because it's about teamwork.
Exactly. So Naz, was there a mentor or colleague that changed the way that you think about claims handling, or that shaped the way that you think about claims handling?
There was, and we shared a manager, and it's that same manager as well. There were a lot of misconceptions about her. I remember the one day, so I was very new to I started off in general liabilities. I was very new to that space. The assessment I remember was the one where a box of fish fell from the fridge on a person's head, and that was the assessment. And
okay.
That was easy. But then as you start getting into the work, you realize it's quite varied.
Yeah.
And I started getting into product liability, and then came product inefficacy. And for the life of me, I was not understanding. I could not understand. And one day I just went to her cubicle style office, and I was like, I feel so dumb. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just can't get this. I was so in that state because I just felt so frustrated. And I remember she looked at me, she was so calm, and she was like, Nadia, first of all, you're not dumb. Second of all, just calm down and go to that corner and bring the punch for me. And then she says, I bring the punch. Now I'm thinking, is she going to throw the punch at me?
Is she going to punch you?
Yeah, exactly. But she says, sit down. What she did in that moment, she took that time to actually illustrate how a product inefficacy claim is.
With a punch.
And I mean, that is something that actually stuck with me. But what I learned in that moment, that in that area, we don't know everything. And sometimes it's better to ask and learn, or sometimes do the research than just leave yourself out in the dark.
And you're never going to know everything because everything is evolving all the time.
And every day you're learning something, and that's why I just feel that's what shaped my view on claims, is that if there are people that are willing to transfer the knowledge and skills, that allows for the sustainability of this type of specialist skills. Transfer of knowledge is such a beautiful thing. It's such an impactful thing. And the only danger to that is gatekeeping, and which is actually a sad reality that some may face sometimes.
That is true.
What skill set do you think is more important now more than ever? And how has it changed?
Okay, so I think 15 years ago, before I was born, the the skill set that was most important for a claims specialist was analytical thinking, right? Because you would have to kind of analyze a policy wording, you would have to analyze a set of facts, you would have to analyze the legal principles that apply to it, right? But I think insurance has changed in such a way that risk management has now taken the center stage. We can't afford to just have big claims so frequently, because of the fact that the quantum of claims have increased so much. So whereas 10 years ago maybe you had 5 million rand claims, which was manageable, now you're getting 5 billion rand claims, and that is not sustainable anymore. So the focus has now changed to risk management. Stop the claim before it starts.
Yes.
Right?
Mitigate.
So the claim specialist is not just a person that's going to sit there and handle the claim. The claim specialist is uniquely positioned to be able to get a lot of data from a lot of different claims and formulate some risk management advice on that, and give it advice to the business, the industry at large, as to how to stop these claims from happening. So from being an analytical thinker, which is still very important, because you have to apply those skills to each and every claim that you get. Now the most important thing, I think, is to be a critical thinker.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're going to gather all that information. See, well, I saw this here. Is it related? What can the industry do, and what advice can we give to our clients so that they can stop these type of incidents from happening? So critical thinking, I think, is the major shift now in terms of what an effective claims handler should possess.
And that's so true, because another point to add to that is it's moving away from just what is perceived to be a desk job, or just or going down one road. You are kind of transforming more into that advisory role, which has a benefit not just to insurers but also an insured. So there's double the benefit in what you do. And it's so important for claim specialists to be kept in the loop. It's so important to understand what your portfolio looks like, or understand what the line looks like, in order to give those meaningful trends and patterns.
Very true, Nadia. And I think on top of that, you mentioned that it was a desk job, and we literally sat behind our desks and were quiet a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But I see claim specialists are coming out of their shell. They're coming into their own a bit more
Yes,
now.
out there.
You're out there because I mean you need to bring these matters to the forefront. These are things that are going to make sure that the industry remains sustainable for a very, very long time to come. So I think that's how the role of a claim specialist has really changed in the past few years.
And it's going to continue to change, because not just the specialists, but also the risk landscape is going to change.
Yes.
And with that, as the risk landscape changes, maybe there's new product development. There's new opportunities for specialists to learn about new things. So it's going to be their constant opportunity to upskill and learn and develop themselves.
And it's important that people take those opportunities.
Yeah.
Otherwise the industry stagnates. If you look at the trends across the industry of people that are claim specialists, you see you reach a certain level. You're a claim specialist until you're a certain age, and then one or two people will go on to be the heads of department or whatever. But most people, I mean, it's a cutoff, right?
Yeah.
Because as much as the work is so fulfilling, I mean, there's only so much you can do, and then you try to go into loss adjusting, or you try to go into this, or you try to go into that. But it doesn't have to be that way.
No.
I think it's because, as you said, there's a gatekeeping element involved in the role. If the role is allowed to expand, become more all-encompassing, become something that it wasn't before, and there is opportunity to do that.
And that would also attract a lot of talent.
Yes.
And that's what we need to do, because if you had to think about it, some people have their doubts about joining the industry.
Yes.
And you need to have something that's quite appealing, because I think people are looking long term in terms of where they're going to go in terms of their career. And you need to make it attractive for them, to say that there is this opportunity to grow. There is this opportunity to evolve.
This podcast is not only going to be about specialist liability claims. We're going to be talking about claims across the board, because there's so much of innovation happening in the claims area. But can you tell us what sets specialist liability claims apart from other claims?
I think the biggest thing is, one, the complexity of it.
Yes.
There's special nuances about those claims, but also there's a specialized type of skill and expertise that's actually required in order to handle that. So that's the main short and sweet answer in terms of what sets it apart.
So why do you think that specialist liabilities require a different mindset?
You require a different mindset. One, again, it's because of the complexity and nuances. There's a lot on the line with these type of claims, not just from a financial, but also a reputational point of view. And therefore, the specialist expertise is required so that you can actually mitigate that loss, but also handle that matter strategically, so that there's the best outcome, not just for the insured, but also the insurer.
Yeah. I mean, I think it also becomes complex because specialist liability claims are third-party in nature, right?
Yeah.
So you have to see whether or not your client is legally liable to a third party. And then it's a two-phase approach.
Yeah.
First, you need to see whether your insured has cover under the policy, so that's one investigation. And then you have to see whether or not your insured is legally liable to that third party. So that's a liability investigation. It's a separate lab, but there's multiple balls again that you're juggling in the air. You need to get it right on each and every front, and you need to make the right decisions on each and every factor. So that's why I think the other thing about it is that specialist liability claims usually involve professions. So you're looking at your doctors, your lawyers, if you're doing a directors and officers claim, this is now at the top board level that you're dealing with these type of people. So those type of professions or those type of activities do require, as you said, a more structured type of mindset.
100%.
And there's a lot more on the line because the quantum is enormous, right?
And also there's possible legal implications.
That's true. That's
and
true.
regulatory.
Also true. Also true. What does good claims handling actually look like in practice?
It's a lot to take into account. First and foremost, if you have to think about the practicalities on the ground, is first and foremost when you deal with a claim, acknowledge immediately.
Yeah.
Right? As it goes back to the point that there's someone that has something on the line, or there's some kind of stress involved around a matter. Also, keeping the insured updated on the progress, the status, or even the process, and provide them with timelines where possible. That client management is so important. Communication is key. But also with communication, it's the tone, how you communicate, so that the language is understandable to the insured. They have an appreciation of what the status is or what the position is. Another thing that's very important, and I always think, is that it's so important to make sure that if there's something that could potentially fall outside of the ambit of the policy, or there's an issue in terms of policy response, it's always best to actually alert the broker or the client to that, instead of them just receiving a letter without being informed. Apart from those type of things, it's so important to make sure that your record keeping is in order, that you actually look at the policy wording, you actually look at the endorsements, conditions, and you actually look at the underwriting file. I think one of the most important things with claims handling is when you understand what your client does, because then you are able to determine so much, any irregularity, something that's not right, or just having an understanding of what their portfolio entails. But again, it's also making sure that you are acting compliantly in terms of the legislation, acting within your mandate, and considering the matters from all angles. It's not just a decision, we pay, you need to do your policy response investigation, you need to do your merits investigation, and you need to do your quantum investigation.
Yeah, I think it's very important. To me, that's the most important thing, to have your ducks in a row.
100%.
If you do not have your ducks in a row, whether you're settling or whether you're rejecting, if you're settling, if somebody comes back and asks you why did you settle this specific matter, you're going to have to give them a very good explanation for why you did that. And definitely if you reject, a lot of people are going to come ask you, why did you reject?
What is the basis?
Exactly, what is the basis? So not having your ducks in a row is the biggest mistake, I think.
100%.
And sometimes there's time pressures, there's client pressures, etc., that just push you to make a decision on the fly, and those decisions never ever work out. You need to make a very, very informed decision. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize about what good claims handling is about, right? Good claims, a lot of people say, I'm passionate about claims. I cringe a little when I hear people say, I'm passionate about claims. Because why is passion? I mean, those of us who've been married for 17 years know that passion is a flash in the pan, right?
Exactly.
It like comes and goes like this. And if you're dealing with long-term claims, Nadia, how do you be passionate about it? You're going to be sitting there for a year. Are you still going to be passionate? 1 year down the line, you're not going to be passionate anymore.
It's a different
Claims is a labor of love, right? You're going to need to fall in love with that matter.
Know it inside out.
Know it inside out. If anybody has to ask you any question about it, it has to be like your boyfriend. You can answer any question about them, like
yes,
in
the favorite
second.
color.
Yes. What's his favorite food? What's his favorite?
Exactly.
You need to know it. You need to know that matter. And I mean, I think good claim specialists, you'll speak to them about a matter 5 years down the line, and they'll say, "Come, that was my matter. I dealt with that matter. I worked on that matter." And you can see when a person really loves claims. They'll say, "That was my matter. They're so proud of it. They've invested themselves in it." And investing yourself in a matter is, I think, the most important thing.
Wanting to
know everything about it. Care about it. You need to care about it as much as your insured cares about it.
And it's important.
Yeah.
Because also it speaks about your work ethic as well. And I remember one of my colleagues told me, a former colleague always told me, when you are in claims, it's something you're either going to love or it's something that you're going to be, this is just not for me.
100%.
And it can translate into the work.
Yes, it does translate into the work, because if you're miserable doing it, you're going to have miserable outcomes.
And that's the thing. That's so good. Seeing how we've unpacked everything, if anything, we realize that being a claim specialist, there's a lot to digest. How do you manage that, the pressure of the high stakes and that judgment?
I go home and cry every night.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm joking. I think reality can hit you very fast. It's as you said, it's high stakes, it's high pressure. You're dealing with a lot of money. You're dealing with decisions that can be life changing and impactful. And I think you need to keep yourself very mentally fit.
Yes.
Right? Mental wellness is a huge part, I think, of being a claim specialist. I think you can very quickly fall into the trap of being overwhelmed if you are not having a good. There's no now we've established apparently that there's no such thing as work-life balance anymore, right? So there is no such thing as work-life balance, but you need to get in your exercise, you need to get in your good nutrition, you need to get in your me time and calm time and meditation and those type of things, just to make sure that you're not going to buckle under the pressure. I firmly believe that we only have a concentration span of 15 minutes at a time, right? Work on your matter for 15 minutes. After that 15 minutes, you're not going to come to the right answer, Nadia. Move on to something else. I'm not saying only work 50 minutes of the day. I'm just saying move on to something else. Unless you're like very entrenched in drafting something that's very long, probably it's going to take you more than 15 minutes. But take proper breaks. You're going to have these binoculars eyes if you're not going to take care of yourself mentally when you're dealing with claims. The pressure is just immense.
Definitely. And I was just, when you mentioned that 15 minutes, it just coincided with what my optometrist told me. Because we're sitting in front of the screen for such a prolonged period, you need to be looking up, you need to be looking away, and you need to be doing those exercises, because the longer you stay at that screen, you're going to damage your eyesight further. So it's just like tied in with just how important it is to look after yourself. But here's the thing. If you don't look after yourself, nobody's going to look after yourself.
True, Nadia.
And there was also advice that the former manager that taught me about product inefficacy said, if you're not well, how do you expect to do everything else?
Yes.
So it's just very practical advice.
You must be mentally strong. If you're not mentally strong, you've seen people being crushed by this industry.
Because the volumes, the people management, you're not just dealing with insureds, there's sometimes third parties, there's this one, then all the attorneys, loss adjusters, if you're appointing, reporting to different parties internally, then having to deal with stuff in your portfolio. It's a whole lot of things that you have to juggle up. But you have to find something that works for you, that replenishes or fills your cup.
Definitely. So Nadia, how do you see the role of a claim specialist evolving in the next 5 to 10 years? Or do you see it evolving?
I definitely see it evolving, because as we touched on earlier, it's no longer just one component of the job. The claim specialist is going to evolve more into that advisory type of role. Someone that is able, with the information that they have from their data analytics experience, being able to provide solutions to clients, being able to provide solutions to the company and underwriters as well. So that's a different ball game as well. You are so much more invested in your portfolios, but also with the evolution and the role evolving, you find that there's also going to be the use of technology. And this is where claim specialists have to upskill themselves in terms of that usage, to use it to their benefit, to help them and support them with certain things, where they can actually then focus on other types of matters.
And a lot of what claim specialists did historically was admin related, right? So, and technology just in the past few years has cut out a lot of the admin related tasks that claims people have to focus on, which I think is just wonderful, because now you have time to focus on the stuff that really matters, right? What about AI? What role do you see AI playing? I think we're going to go into this in a lot more detail in another session, but what role do you see AI playing?
It can help you get rid of the admin. That's one component. But there are many ways that AI can be incorporated into the workspace so long as it's used responsibly and there's proper policies in place. Because you're still going to have to use your mind. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think I use AI a lot. It's helpful, I won't lie. Sometimes it doesn't sound like me, and I hate that.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't sound like me, that's when I say, bye, ChatGPT, I'll see you another
Use your
time.
discretion.
But I do agree, like when it comes to processes, a lot of processes can be automated by AI.
Yeah.
But when it comes to judgment calls, I'm not sure
Yet.
that it's there yet. Because I mean, obviously, there's a lot of biases that are inherent in AI as well,
Yeah.
that could affect judgment calls. So I think we see in other industries where AI is now not probably being accepted anymore. I'm curious to see what is the future. I think it's going to take some insurer using AI to do probably their policy response. And if that has to go to court, I
It's going
guess
to be a big problem.
I wonder, like, what will the court say if the AI had to give a wrong, policy response?
Because there has been jurisdictions recently or in the past few months where the courts have actually ruled against the use of AI.
Yes, I think there have been a few, yeah.
And my belief has always been with the type of work that we do, we shouldn't only rely on what's happening here. We need as to what's happening across the globe.
Yes.
Because whatever happens there eventually
gets to us, yeah.
Gets to us. So we need to understand what was the rationale of the judge that made that determination, what went wrong. Yeah. So it's so important because then you can avoid a PI claim against you.
I saw this thing the other day where there was, those vacuum cleaner robots, those robots.
Ones,
yeah. I have one actually, and I love it.
I saw it.
I mean, that AI kill is welcome in my life anytime. But the caption was, they say robots are gonna take over the world, but this robot, there was a shoe in its way, but it took like 5 to 7 business days just to pick the shoe up off the floor and move it to another. So I think in time, definitely, the technology is going to evolve. Technology has evolved so much over the past 20 years. But it also comes down to that human element, Nats. We were talking about it. Why call centers still exist? Why in this day and age, with all the technology that we have, do call centers still exist? And why is it still such a booming market? Despite the fact that technology has evolved. I mean, you and I would never pick up the phone and call somebody. I would send an email, I would send a text or something like that, unless I have like a lot of things that I want to discuss. Then I would call somebody. But other than that, I mean, it's just easier for me. But there's still there's a core market that still relies heavily on speaking to a person directly. And I think when you have such an emotionally topic or such an emotionally charged matter, you don't want to be talking to a robot.
100%. But that's also, that human touch is also could be central to that service.
Yeah.
Right? That's what your client is expecting, someone to guide you.
Yes.
And imagine, hi, this is your robot. I don't understand the prompt right now. It can be very frustrating.
No, it can be very frustrating. And I mean, having a claim is a trauma, right?
It is.
Because there's a peril, something that happened to you. I mean, it's called peril because it's perilous, probably, right? And something happened to you. You need your claim specialist is supposed to kind of be your therapist, your trauma bonder, kind of. So you really, really want to speak to a normal person on the other side. And then now, when you're speaking to that person, you don't want that person to have no idea of how the decision making happened because it was all done by a robot. That person needs to.
How do you justify it?
Yeah.
And that's part of. Remember something with AI. Even though you may be using it, that's one of the concerns that they have because it lends itself to transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
AI needs to show that they can actually justify their decisions.
Yes.
And if you can't, there's a big problem.
Yes.
And then how do you, just say the matter goes before a regulator, how do you justify their decision? There you fall short on compliance as well. So it's big issues.
Yeah.
But we're not writing it off. It's something definitely worth
No, AI
watching.
is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it improves our lives in so many ways. There's things that you thought you could never do before, but you can do it very easily in a click of a finger with AI right now.
100%. Last week I was interviewing Barack Obama at the World Economic Forum.
Oh, wow, nice. What did he have to say for himself?
He was just a bit shy by my presence.
Oh, okay. You were starstruck. Okay, so now I think what excites me most about the future of claims is to see the up and coming claim specialists. I think it's important for us as leaders to kind of give the core skills, the core values, to pass that down. But it's so interesting to see fresh perspectives.
Their point of view.
Yes, I mean, if you look at the way a millennial handles a claim as opposed to what a Gen Z would handle a claim, they think of things in a different way that you probably wouldn't think of. And I think that it's such an asset.
It's fresh perspective.
Yes, it's a fresh perspective, and it's so nice to work with that kind of a vibe. And I think a big part of the issues that we face with our industry is a skills gap, right? And why is there a skills gap? Because there's a lack of proper mentorship and coaching. And as you said, there's gatekeeping to an extent of the knowledge and skills that are required. I think the claim specialists that I train are independent thinkers, right? You don't want somebody that needs you to be there and hold their hand every step of the way in order to make a decision, because that's frustrating for every stakeholder.
It frustrates the whole process.
It frustrates the entire process. If you give the person the freedom to be able to think, the freedom to make a mistake, you fix the mistake, but you know that you don't make the mistake again.
And you learn from
the next time. You learn from those mistakes. But I mean, if you're going to, and we don't know the answers. I may tell you, listen, do things a certain way, and it may not be the right way. You know what I'm saying? And then you're just perpetuating that incorrect way of thinking, where there may be a more, exciting way of doing something.
And I like the idea, so that when you think of Gen Zs and the different generations, there's more of this diversity of generations working together, and they come with their different principles, values, and stuff like that. That is why also the EQ and peopling skills are so important, because that's going to enable you to work together and collaborate. And teamwork is so important.
Teamwork is very important. It can't be an autocracy. It has to be. It has
support.
To be a support system, and it has to be people that are working together towards a common goal. So yes, that's what excites me most about the future of claims.
It's going to be exciting.
So, now, if you weren't in claims, what would you be doing? Or should I ask this question?
I would be a political risk analyst.
A political risk analyst?
Yes.
Do something more exciting. Go from one stressful thing to another.
I watch documentaries for fun. Okay.
I think it is interesting what we would be doing if we weren't in claims. I think we're very, very I think we're very, very fortunate in a way to have dropped into this profession. I don't think anybody really chooses it. It chooses you.
Definitely. Everybody has deviated some way or the other and ended up here.
Yeah. So we hope that you enjoyed the first episode of our podcast, The Grey Area. Going forward, we're going to be looking at more of these type of issues. We're going to be looking at a lot of technical discussions, because that's what keeps our cogs turning at the end of the day. We're going to be looking at case studies, risk management advice, coaching and mentorship discussions, training. We're going to be talking about books that shape the way that we think.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing some book club. And we're going to also be talking about people issues. We're going to be talking about diversity and inclusion, and how to build probably a thoughtful and considered career in insurance. Is it possible? We don't know. We also at some point want to start having some special guests on, and that's going to be so exciting. We in talks with some people already. But we hope you enjoyed the first episode of The Grey Area. And if there's anything you'd like us to talk about in particular, let us know. Comments or message us, or let us know, because we love talking.
Yeah, we waffle on.
We waffle. Just a bit of waffle on the side. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.